Facebook, YouTube, and IGTV. For broadcast possibilities and to get your podcast started, contact us 879-4319. 879-4319. Be heard on Radio St. George, Radio Dixie, and a podcast studio. Just a few of the great things happening at Dixie State University.
Welcome to the podcast. We Do Recover with Jared Miller, your host.
And I'm Dr. Terry Sellers, your co-host.
This is a podcast about addiction, but more importantly, about recovery.
We want to talk about what successful recovery can look like.
Brought to you by Steps Recovery Center and the St. George Hilton Garden Inn.
Okay, you are listening to We Do Recover. I'm your host, Jared Miller. Today I'm joined via Skype by your Skype.
Scoop. I like Scoop better.
By your co-host.
Scoop is where you learn something brand new about somebody over the internet.
That's right. Dr. Terry Sellers. In the Recovery Lounge, we got Sean Denovan, the producer, and your featured guest, Ian Rader.
Hey,
You made it 3 seconds before messing up, so I think we're on a roll.
That's pretty
here.
good.
Hey, it's out of the way, though.
I mean,
right?
last time
Yeah.
we were about the 7 to 10 mark, but you're down to 3, so pretty soon we'll be like, we'll just start off with a hiccup.
It makes it
Start
cool.
off. Screw
Let's just
up.
let's get it out of the way.
Yeah.
Hey, if you're listening to this podcast was recorded in sunny St. George, Utah. Episode 006 is brought to you by Steps Recovery Center, where addiction ends and healing begins. And listen, if your loved one needs help, give them a call at 801-800-8142. Dr. Sellers, what's new and good, buddy?
Well, I'll tell you, nothing's new and good with me. Everything's bad and old.
That's a bright way to start off the podcast.
Actually, I'm doing quite well. Things are great. I'm in the midst of having a whole ton of dental work done, which is going to cost me between $30,000 and $40,000. Nice. You can probably see I'm missing a couple of teeth on the bottom because they pulled them already. But all is good. It's all going to get fixed. Everything's great. Anything happening in my life? No, I'm in my 39th year of marriage now. You guys all know that.
There you go.
That's probably it for me today.
You made it through the anniversary. Congratulations.
Yeah, still married.
Love it. Sean Denovan, what's new and good with you?
Just prepping for the first week of school tomorrow, or next week, or whenever it is.
Monday, right?
Yeah, Monday. Yeah, so school starts Monday, so I'm getting everything ready for that. So it's been a whole lot of cleaning around the studios and getting everything ready for the kids to come back. Yeah, that's it. There's no excitement. That's it, man. Me and a bottle
Stellar.
of 409. Boom.
Stellar. Hey, well, at least you're getting the place cleaned up. Ian Rader,
What's up?
let's get you in the mix, buddy. What's new and good?
You know, not much. I'm getting married.
What?
I know.
Don't do it. Just kidding.
We were
hey,
supposed
do it.
to. Thank you. See, thank you. We
Yeah.
were supposed to get married in November, but with everything going on, we're going to push the wedding out a year. But yeah, get married.
That's cool.
That's
Super
crazy.
exciting. Super exciting. If my girlfriend Mandy is listening to this, I just got myself in trouble. You know how Sellers last week, he got brownie points with his significant other? I just went in the negative, buddy.
Yeah.
No, it's just I'm just surprised that someone actually wants to marry me, especially with what I used to be like.
Get out of here.
Oh man, that's how you know recovery is possible.
Right?
That someone can go from who I was to where, and she's not in recovery. She's a quote unquote, normie,
Yeah.
and the fact that she thinks I'm normal enough to like, oh yeah, let's get married. I'm like, you're crazy.
I know a guy that's been married for like 38 years. Give him some advice, Dr. Sellers.
Please,
Let's get some advice.
You want some advice?
Sure.
Advice on how to stay married? Because I've got some.
No, I want to
So-
figure how do we get divorced? How do we not have a marriage last?
Here's how you don't get divorced is divorce is not an option, right?
Ooh,
so
nice.
if you take it off the table, then any problems you have in your marriage, you have to fix
Yeah,
before. And for me, frankly, you have to fix them before you go to bed.
yeah.
But if the divorce is not one of the options at all, then you'll fix the problems.
I like that.
That's it.
Thank you.
It was never really an option for me.
Words of wisdom from
Yeah.
Dr. Terry Sellers. So, Ian Rader, thank you so much for coming down.
Thanks for having me, man. Yeah.
Absolutely. Appreciate you being willing to come on and
course.
share your story of recovery. So let's get to it. Tell us what your recovery looks like today. You shared a little bit about you're getting married. It's crazy that's possible in recovery. Let's get some other deets.
So, yeah, what my recovery looks like today is, I love talking about my successes in recovery to show other people that it's possible. Today, I'm a business owner. I'm a homeowner. I'm in a successful relationship, which is pretty awesome. And the only thing I can, give props to that is because the way I live my life. Being of service to other people. I'm actually an accredited interventionist and addiction specialist today, and that's kind of my day-to-day recovery.
You do that through the company, one of the companies, right?
Yeah, so I
go
own
ahead and tell us about that.
I own a company called Sobriety Wellness Services. Me and a buddy started it together, and that's what's allowed me to grow my intervention, my addiction specialist, and yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So give us a glimpse of what that looks like on a day-to-day basis.
Oh, it really depends. A lot of it is what's known as safe transport or safe passage, which is, if someone is going to detox, hospitalization, rehab, usually most of the time it involves a long car ride or an airplane ride. One of the biggest fears when being escorted to treatment facility, hospitalization, things like that, is the person not making it there alive. Either they drink themselves to death or they just never make it on or off the plane, or something happens. So we actually help with safe transport, making sure that they get to the destination safely. And one of the main reasons I actually got into intervention in the first place, one of the things that made me so passionate about it was I was a nightmare to my family. My mom, my dad.
Safe to say we all were.
Yeah, right. And I was such a nightmare. And I've realized, there are a lot of different types of resources for the person in recovery. There's not a lot of resources for the people who are, dealing with that person in recovery. And I love being able to answer questions to the family, helping dispel any rumors, and helping them set boundaries. So, because addiction is a family disease, and helping them, move forward amicably in everyone's recovery, not just the person suffering from a form of addiction.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I love it. And also, if I'm listening to this and I am contemplating some services like this for a family member, a lot of it has to do with, do you guys have nurses? And maybe Dr. Sellers can speak to this, because a big part of it is a safe transport.
Yeah.
Do you have experience in that, Dr. Sellers?
A little bit. I mean, I used to run a private detox company. We don't do that much anymore, but yeah, I mean, that's part of the whole service is, sometimes, well, not sometimes, almost always your people that are coming into rehab or detox show up high or drunk but it's their last hurrah. So I've actually seen a person who was coming into detox not quite make it to the detox. And I'm not talking about because he was too high. I'm talking about because he wasn't breathing anymore. Ooh. And so, yeah, that's super important stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys travel with a nurse, a full-time nurse? What does that look like?
It really depends on the individual. So if the individual, especially if you're dealing with alcohol or benzo-related transports, your first trip is to the hospital.
Good for the listeners to know.
Yeah, because, everyone always focuses on, once you hear the word heroin or methamphetamines or crazy crack cocaine, you think, oh, man, like that's good. Those detoxes are horrible, but they're not actually likely to kill you in the process. Whereas alcohol, which is legal and people drink it every day, is actually one of the few drugs that can kill you from the withdrawals.
That's scary.
It is. And so that's why when it comes, and also benzos, same deal. So depending on their level of alcohol and benzo intake, how long they've been abusing that, your first trip is most likely to the hospital to get medically cleared to make sure that they don't go into seizures and other things like that.
And correct me if I'm wrong by saying this, but some facilities won't accept people that are on those type of substance use if they're not medically cleared. Correct, Dr. Sellers?
Yeah, I would say most.
Yeah.
not just
And if
some.
they, oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, if they do accept someone, then they're not doing their job.
Valid point.
Right.
So tell us the name of your company again, and if the listeners are listening to this, how can they get a hold of you guys if they have a loved one that needs to get some help?
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. So again, it's Sobriety Wellness Services. You can go to sobrietywellnessservices.com, or you can even call me directly, and I'll just throw it out there. My number is 805-319-5498.
Give Ian Ready a
Oh,
call.
it's just bomb you with calls now. You're getting all kinds of calls now.
But you
dude.
know what? And that's the amazing, the also amazing thing about recovery is I don't screen my calls anymore today. I'm not scared of who's going to call me from my past or a debt collector or anything like that. You know, if someone wants to get a hold of me because of my experience, because of the person who I am today and how I lead my life, I want them to call me. You know, even if it's just to talk about, hey man, like I've been in recovery, or I don't know what's going on. Like, that's what I'm here for. That is what God put me on this earth to do with my past experiences.
Brother, that's why you're on this podcast. If you're listening to this, we do recover. I mean, you're coming up on 5.
Next week, I will have 5 years sober. Yeah.
You get to a point where you make it to the other side, and instead of being ashamed of it, and instead of being afraid of it, you're proud of it, right? And it becomes part of your identity and something that you wear almost, I wouldn't say as a badge of honor, but you're definitely, Dr. Sellers, speak on that. I mean, I know I view that because of things that you've taught me. So go ahead.
Sure. Well, first I want to go back to something that Ian said, and it's super critical. You've really nailed one of the pieces of recovery that's so great for everybody that gets there, and that is the peace of mind that comes when, for example, the police are in your rearview mirror. Like, I don't worry, right? I'm probably gonna get a speeding ticket or something like that. But and the incoming phone calls, you know, it's not going to be the Division of Professional Licensing trying to take my license away from me. So I think that's awesome. As speaking to the subject you mentioned, Jared, that is, so I've been clean for 18 years now.
Heck yeah.
And it's just, I don't have anybody in my life that doesn't know, you know, what I used to do. Everybody knows I'm a drug addict, but that's because I'm not ashamed of it anymore. If people want to judge me over stuff I did 18 years ago, well, I don't need those people. You know, if they want to judge me with what I'm doing today, it's a different sort of thing that I've got going today.
Yep. If you're listening to this and you're early in recovery, hold on. Hold on. Keep doing the next right thing, one day at a time. You get to a point where, you know, things start getting better.
Oh, yeah.
So back to your journey of recovery. Business owner, getting married, right? Doing a lot of service work. What else you got going on in your life, dude?
So everything, and it's just crazy because, you know, every time a milestone comes up, every time like a sobriety birthday comes up, I get so emotional thinking about what life used to look like to what life looks like today, you know? And so when someone asks me that question, it's like, what does my life look like in recovery? And I'm like, I don't even really know where to begin. Just because, like, I have real friends today. You know, that was a big thing for me. Just I have real friends today. I have relationships with my family today. And especially with, you know, being an addiction specialist, you learn a lot about key relationships and how really important they are, because people, there's social creatures. You know, we need healthy relationships like that. And that's the biggest journey in my recovery today, is just building successful relationships, either with me or helping other people build those successful relationships.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful
awesome.
thing.
Hey, talk me through, let's say I've got a family member that's struggling and I want to figure out how to get them someplace, or what. So I call your phone number. Again, repeat that really quickly for me.
Yeah, it's 805-319-5498.
Okay. So I call your number. Now walk me through the process of what we do next. Like, what are you gonna, so you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So most of the time what happens is the family member calls me just extremely frustrated. They don't know what's going on. They don't know what to do. So my first job is to calm that person down. And then my second job is to ascertain what's going on and what kind of services that this individual is going to benefit most from. Maybe they don't even want help. You know, they're like, they don't even know that this person's reached out to me for help. So that usually means we need to set up an intervention. And what an intervention looks like, me or my partner will come to you, and it's a 2-day process. First day, it was actually the longest part, is where we gather as much information as possible about the person, what they like, what they don't like, what kind of job do they have, just everything we can, because that's going to help me choose what treatment center they go to. That's best going to fit their needs, their profile, things like that.
You're trying to set them up for success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they love the outdoors and wilderness, I don't want to send them to New York in the middle, like downtown New York, or it also depends on their demographics. Like maybe they're from a big city and they feel more comfortable in an area. So that's why you got to learn as much as you can. But the major part is I also sit down with all of the family members involved and I help them set boundaries. I help them set boundaries of what life's going to look like if this person says, no, I don't want to go to treatment. You guys are crazy. What life looks like after they go to treatment, during treatment. And I just walk them through the process, and I make sure I give them my phone number so they can call me with any questions they have. I don't care if it's been years since the initial intervention. And then the next day, everyone has their approaches to intervention. My job is to make it as quick as possible. I'm not here to, I don't know about anyone else, but I was an emotional hostage taker when I was running and gunning.
Yeah.
So, I in a nice way, I explained to the person, we don't negotiate with hostages, with emotional terrorism. We don't negotiate with terrorists.
That's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, and it's just like, this is A, this is B. A is you come with me, we go right now, and we'll answer any questions you have. B, if you don't want to go, that's fine. No one's forcing you to go. Your family has something they would like to tell you. And then we go into the boundary setting. And so, but moving forward, let's say they do go. And then my job is to ascertain what medications they're taking, legal substances, make sure they're medically cleared to travel, things like that. And then from there, we can either do a normal medical detox setting if they need it, or we can do a private detox setting. Maybe they don't want their coworkers to find out about it. Maybe they're, well known and they don't want people knowing that they're going to a detox. So we will get either an Airbnb, a hotel, something like that, and privately detox them away from public eye. And then maybe they go to treatment, or we do something that's known as sober companionship, which is, again, maybe they don't want to go to treatment because they don't want people knowing they're in treatment. And we will do sober companionship where, I've been with people where I just pretend to act as their assistant. I'll go to work with them. I'll live with them, all these things. And people ask, like, who's this guy? I'm like, oh, he's just my assistant. It's fine. And I go, yeah, I'm his new assistant. He just blah, blah, blah. But while we're doing that, I help him form healthy, recovery goals in his daily routines while we're doing that. And I'll live with people as long as necessary to make sure that we set them up for success.
So sober companionship is really the next stage. It's phase 2.
Depending on, because some people won't work well with that kind of compatibility. It really depends on the individual. I went through a rehab setting and I thrived there, but some people, I've seen people go through 38 rehab settings in a year.
Yeah. Robert Downey Jr.
Right. 1 year. And just some people don't jive well with that kind of setting. So it's a matter of, what is going to promote the success for each individual person.
Yeah, so you basically research and develop a customized plan
Yeah.
based on them, based on what their likes are, what their needs are, and then execute on that plan.
Everything down from nutrition to exercise, everything.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's the brainchild of that?
Oh man. So for our company, it was definitely my partner. He's been doing this forever. And then,
Go ahead and give him a shout out.
he doesn't have social media at all, so he'll never see this. But Tyler Richards, I love you, man. You're my dude, and I'll see you tonight for dinner, actually. So there you go. Awesome. But this sober companionship and stuff like this was actually really big in the 80s.
Okay.
But it was more geared towards famous people and actors. And, like I said, it was geared towards the people who didn't want to know that they were going to treatment and they were high profile.
Right. They want that private setting.
Yeah.
In the 80s, Dr. Sellers, you were like 60 at that time?
Yeah.
54.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
You have.
That's
Come
what
on.
you say.
It's part of the program. You know I gotta crack at it, buddy. You give
I
me a
get
bad
it.
time for being a Utes fan.
I get it.
You got
Are
some.
the Utes playing football this year?
We
Oh
can't
no,
talk
they're not.
about that.
Never mind.
Are you trying to get me
They're
to
gonna
cry on the podcast?
They're gonna go undefeated though because they're not playing anybody.
Dr. Sellers is officially trying to get me to cry on the podcast.
Dr.
We're not
Sellers, I think
talking
you're
about-
breaking up. I think we lost visual and audio. I don't. Shh.
That's right. We're not talking about the Utes not having a season. 2020.
Oh man,
it's all bad.
I don't feel like I brought the subject up, so I think this is on you.
Man, you brought up earlier, Dr. Sellers, lights in the rearview mirror. So Ian Rader comes to town, and we're
Got a
boys.
story.
So yes, we got a story happened last night, and we go out to dinner. Right, we're on our way to Texas Roadhouse, and we get lit up. Apparently, you're not. I'm not gonna give numbers out there, but I was going a little fast.
Was it 3 digits?
No.
cool if he was though.
Listen, I'm not that cool, right? So yeah, and after that whole experience, we were laughing because we were like, man, it's crazy how like today it's just the normal, right? License, registration, proof of insurance. But back in the day, your heart sank. You had to come up with these stories and these excuses, and I mean, it's crazy. We're all blessed that we don't have to live that life anymore.
Oh man, and it blows my mind today because before, when stuff like that would happen, I wouldn't even look in a cop's direction. If I saw anything that remotely resembled law enforcement, even if it was a TSA agent, a parking enforcement agent, like I was like, mm-mm. And today, like, I'm really grateful that I don't have to live in fear today.
Amen.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, oh man, we got pulled over and we were joking with the cop. We were laughing.
He was a good dude. Shout
was a
out
really
to
good dude.
law enforcement. They get a bad rap, but hey, those guys are solid.
There's always bad people wherever you go. There's always good people wherever you go. And it's just one of those things where, good or bad, it doesn't matter. We're all people at the end of the day. I can't focus on what other people choose to do because all I can do is set the example for, what it means to be good, I guess, even though I'm not perfect or anything, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're trying to say. Yep. You shared something with me over dinner that I thought was incredible.
That was private.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, we won't, get into the details on it, but we were talking about rebuilding relationships with family members, and we both shared some things privately. And one thing that I loved was you talked about consistency, about how you set a goal to consistently call different family members on, was it a weekly basis, a monthly basis?
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about that and how you kind of was able to, so if I'm listening to this and I'm in early recovery, I mean, what's the best way to make those reconnections?
So I'll talk about my mom.
Yeah.
My mom is one of my biggest heroes. And, I stole something very valuable from her. I stole her son.
Ooh.
I stole her ability to be a mom, and I got sober just after. It's funny, I have 2 birthdays in August. August 3rd is my birthday and August 28th is my sobriety date. I was 25 years old when I first got sober. And for a very long time, my mom didn't have a son.
Yeah.
And so I made it a point to, and I'm not perfect and I forget sometimes, but I even have an alarm on my phone that once every Sunday I call my mom, and I let her just be a mom, let her talk about mom stuff. Are you eating right? Are you taking care? Are you going to the gym? Like, how's your cholesterol? Have you got your blood work done? Like, and she's been in the medical field forever. So every time we talk, it's like, when you go to the doctor, make sure you ask him for the lipids test and the why, or I don't even know, but she's asking all these things. And I just let her be a mom. Before that would frustrate me just because, like, I'm a grown man. I don't need you, blah, blah, blah. It's like, but, it's my mom. And I robbed her son for a long time. So part of the ways, I make amends to that is I just let her be a mom.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And I love the consistency aspect of that, because I think a lot of times we think, well, I'll try every once in a while, but sometimes it takes that consistent knock at the door to really extend that olive branch and to rebuild those relationships. So
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
No, one last thing. It's just
You're good. You've been listening to part 1 of We Do Recover, episode 006.
we'll be back soon.
Stay tuned.
Bam.
You are listening to We Do Recover with Jared Miller and co-hosted by Dr. Terry Sellers. We'll be right back after the short break with more of We Do Recover with Jared Miller, brought to you by Steps Recovery Center and the St. George Hilton Garden Inn. We welcome you back to We Do Recover with Jared Miller, co-hosted by Dr. Terry Sellers, brought to you by Steps Recovery Center and the St. George Hilton Garden Inn. And now with part 2 of our podcast, Jared Miller and Dr. Terry Sellers.
Welcome back, listeners. This is part 2 of We Do Recover. We have your featured guest for episode 006, Ian Rader, in studio with us. You got a little cut off there. Did you want to finish that thought?
And
please do.
The question was consistency with relationships, and the consistency is the biggest part, because before, my level of consistency was 0. I couldn't show up to a job on time if I showed up at all, even if I had a job. I couldn't show up to important events, birthdays, things like that. I had no consistency in my life whatsoever. So especially as a person in long-term recovery today, everyone has their opinions on, people in recovery, outside sources like, oh, they're just junkies. They're never going to, or whatever the opinion is. So if I am the only person that someone will ever truly physically meet in recovery, this is just my opinion, but I like to set a good example of what that is. So when I tell someone I'm going to show up at this time, I like to show up 10 minutes early. If I say I'm going to do something, I make sure that I do it, because I know that the opinion of people in recovery isn't the best.
Yeah. You're trying to rewrite that.
Yeah. And especially that's why I like talking about how I'm an entrepreneur today. I am a business owner, homeowner, getting married. I do day trading during the days and stuff. I love to talk about that, not because I'm trying to boost my ego or to say how special I am, but mainly because I want to change the perception of, people in long-term recovery, they can do some cool stuff. That's so cool. They're like normal people.
Right. And I'm sure that the people in your life that you're rebuilding those relationships appreciate that kind of stuff, because I'm sure you didn't show up for them like that in the past.
No, yeah.
So thank you for finishing that thought.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Terry Sellers, what's going on?
Hey, can I toss out a thought real quick?
Please.
Absolutely.
Yeah, about that. So I get the question all the time. How do I rebuild trust? And, people have been ruining trust for 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. And all of a sudden they think that they can rebuild it the minute they get clean and sober.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't work. It's going to take a little bit of consistency and a little bit of, all you have to do is be trustworthy. It'll come back, but you got to be trustworthy for a period of time. Mm-hmm. It's not like, and I remember getting mad when I first got clean, stop suspecting me of stuff I'm not using right now. And it's like, well, but that's what they're used to for 15 or 20 years or 10 years or whatever it is. And so it just takes a little bit of the consistency that Ian was talking about.
Yeah, and the accountability of realizing we train them to think like that. We train them to be that way. I love that. That could be a whole podcast in and of itself. Should we get to the question? Who's this brought to us by?
Yeah. Well, our question today is sponsored by the Hilton Garden Inn. I don't know if you've ever been there. Ian, have you ever been to the Hilton Garden Inn?
Funny enough, you say. I was actually there last night. Wow.
Man, how was it?
It was wonderful, actually. It was really great.
Yeah, good.
And actually, one of the best omelets I have ever had.
Very nice.
Awesome. Well, I've stayed there as well. It's beautiful. I love it. And I want everybody to know that it is always sunny and friendly at the Hilton Garden Inn.
Thank you for that. Okay, let's get to this
Yeah.
question. This is a heavy one today. Are we ready? Here we go.
Hi, guys. This is Amanda from Logan. I am calling in to ask Dr. Sellers his opinion on long-term MAT treatment. Do you feel that it is just a pharmaceutical version of cross-addiction, or do you think it's something that's really helpful for people? Thanks, guys. Can't wait to hear it on the air. Bye.
That's a great question, right? That's really a great question because both sides of that argument exist. Like a lot of people, particularly family members, think, hey, all you're doing is switching my son from heroin to the
Suboxone or methadone.
Other
or-
substances.
basically, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of data in the literature. There's a lot of data in the literature about MAT, which is medication-assisted treatment, okay? And that includes a number of medications, methadone, Suboxone or Subutex, and Vivitrol, frankly. And sometimes we forget that Vivitrol is part of MAT. Everybody thinks MAT is some opiate replacement therapy, which is not exactly what it is. Vivitrol is very helpful for people, maybe, frankly, one of the best tools we have.
Yeah.
But the literature says that, and this is pretty clear, less people die on Suboxone and methadone than. So the proponents of medication-assisted treatment always quote those studies. Well, listen, that's important studies. You can't get to recovery when you're dead. Like you got to keep people alive for them to be able to find recovery, right? And if you are taking Suboxone as prescribed by a doctor and not abusing it, then how is your life not way better than it used to be? It always is. And so, yeah, I struggle sometimes with MAT because I didn't use MAT, right? Like I came out of treatment, I didn't take any medications. I was able to stay clean and so stuff. And so you get a little biased about the people that use medication-assisted treatment, but it saves lives. It keeps people alive. And, we were talking about this a little before we started the podcast, and Ian mentioned that in his opinion, it really depends on the patient, and I agree. It depends on the individual patient, and it depends on the behaviors you see when somebody starts taking MAT. If people are still sneaking around, if they're hiding their stuff, if they're taking more than the doctor prescribed, if they're getting early refills, all of those addictive behaviors, then basically you've substituted Suboxone or methadone for heroin. But if what you see out of people, and you do see this a lot, is better behaviors, that's an excellent MAT candidate.
Yeah, they're able to keep a job, right? They're able to go through daily life. When we talk a lot about opiates, because the opiate epidemic is so huge, there's also things for, we discussed it. We've been discussing it. If you are on benzos or alcohol, you have to, Dr. Sellers, they have to, it has to be a medical thing. Go ahead.
No question. Well, unfortunately, there's not any great medication-assisted treatment for benzos or for alcohol or for meth or for, and I hear that all the time from patients too. How come I can't take a medication when they're a meth addict? There isn't really a lot of great things for that. Vivitrol helps with alcohol and with opiates, and then Suboxone helps with opiates and methadone.
Yeah.
Right. So there's not great medication-assisted treatment for the other addictions, and that's kind of unfortunate.
Yeah. Amanda, thank you for calling in that question for Dr. Sellers. If you're listening to this and you want to get on air, you have a question like Amanda, you want to get something answered, give us a call. We have a hotline set up. That number is 801-410-0676. Again, give us a call, 801-410-0676, or you can, if you don't want your voice to be on air, you can send us an email at We Do Recover with Jared Miller. It's We Do Recover with Jared Miller at gmail.com. So thank you. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it. Can I lead out?
Yeah, absolutely.
Ian, we know what you're doing. Tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are now. Tell us a little bit of your story of how you got addicted and kind of what that looked like.
Yeah, in a brief synopsis, I come from a really good family, great family dynamic. But as far back as I can remember, I never felt comfortable in my own skin. Even I can remember back even in like second grade, I just didn't feel, I felt like everyone got the like outline to life except me.
I think a lot of people can relate to that. I know I can.
Oh, yeah. And it's funny, majority of people who relate to that become substance abusers. Weird. And I remember, I experimented with drugs at a young age, and I had reached the mountaintop. I had felt that deep sigh of relief that I just wanted to feel normally, that everyone else could take with impunity, but I could only find that deep breath by taking a substance.
That's the lie that your head told you.
Yeah. Because it's just like I always felt tense, like I would always just feel like I'd be taking short breaths my whole life, but then finally took a substance and
Yep.
And that's what I was just like, okay, I had found the keys to the castle of normality, and then from there it just spiraled on, and then finally, like, mixed with a bunch of other things. Like I was always afraid, so I hung out with really scary people, to kind of like mask that fear. I was really angry a lot, so I pushed people away. And my perception of reality was driven by fear and anger, which caused me to make decisions based off fear or anger.
Makes sense.
And if anyone's ever made a decision based off fear or anger, they usually don't work out too well. Those snap decisions. But that was my entire life, was based around snap decisions, based off raw, unfounded emotion, based off my perception. So I finally I break down. I was homeless on and off and around Los Angeles, Santa Ana, all these crazy places. And finally, like my last detox was cold turkey at my dad's house off crack, meth, and heroin.
And just real quick, you went over that real fast. And,
Yeah.
And I get it, right? Because I've been homeless. We don't typically like to talk about it. But I mean, you were homeless in an area that was like, it's notorious.
Yeah.
I'll let you say it.
So it was 7th and Los Angeles Street, also known as Skid Row, right
Right.
around that area.
In the LA area.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was funny because people are like, how did that happen? And it's like, because I was born in Santa Barbara, California. If anyone knows, it's a very lovely, amazing area. And honestly, like towards the end, I just wanted to be closer to the drugs.
I can relate. As I
Right?
shared to you last night,
Like the on and off homelessness that I had could have easily been defeated. Like I had places to go.
It's not like we didn't have friends or family that would let us couch surf.
Yeah, or some. I could have found something, but it was just like I had lost all self-respect without even knowing it. I just didn't care anymore.
Yeah, I hate to bring this back to me, but I can literally remember like going down on the front runner and thinking to myself with a bag of clothes, knowing that I was going to be staying at the homeless shelter, this is better because then I don't have to travel back and forth. How broken is that? How broken is that thought to think to yourself, well, at least I'm closer. I don't have to wake up and figure out travel plans and blah, 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 right? And that's what basically you're saying, it was a convenience thing.
Convenient. And that is the insanity and reality of substance abuse and addiction and mental illness. Is the great ideas I have, I actually think are great.
Yeah. You believe the lies that your brain tells you.
And, we were talking last night at dinner about, the choice.
Yeah.
Right. And it's really easy for people to say like, well, why can't they just choose this? Or if they loved this person, they wouldn't choose drugs. If they did this and blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's really easy for people who haven't been touched by this thing to talk about the choice. And you know what? I don't blame them for saying that, because I thank God that they don't know about the disease of addiction, because if they did, then that means they've suffered from it, or they know someone who suffered from it. And it's a horrible thing to suffer with, and I don't wish that on anybody.
Great point.
Yeah. But at the same time, when we talk about the choice, you know, it's my decision making is being altered by a disease. And people argue it's a disease, like, well, the DCM-5 and all these other, you know, medical experts who are more medically cleared than I am. It is a disease in the medical community. Dr. Sellers, can we get an amen?
Amen. The AMA calls it a disease.
Yeah. I mean, so there we go. So my thought making is being affected by a disease. So again, we talk about making decisions based off fear or anger. You know, fear and anger aren't necessarily a disease in itself, but every person can relate to making decisions based off clouded judgment. So now you have an idea of what it's like to make a decision based off a disease.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, I want to point this out, because one of the things we're trying to do with the podcast is really highlight what people are doing in recovery, like the great things that they've got. And we don't want to do tons of war stories and that sort of stuff. And thanks for telling us your story. It was great. But I think it's really interesting to point out that you go from, I have discovered the keys to the castle of normality, to I'm homeless in a very brief period of time. Like, it goes very quickly from, hey, this is awesome, to this is horrible.
Yeah.
And I think people need to realize that. We're not glorifying drug use at all. The truth is, it always ends with.
Yeah, that's a great point. And
nobody ever keeps using substances for 20 years and has nothing go wrong.
Yeah.
And I just want to bring
you
up,
highlighted that brilliantly.
Thank you. Thank you.
and yeah, thank you, Dr. Sellers. And I just want to bring up, we do part 2 on kind of a little bit more of the heavier stuff, because I think it is important for people that are listening to understand that we have people on here that have been through
heck.
Yeah. They've been through it, and they've been able to
You
come
can
out.
say
the other
hell
side.
on the radio these days. I think
Oh,
it's okay.
well, there you go.
So
I think we've come a little ways.
yeah, like Dr. Sellers was saying, we don't want to spend a ton of time dwelling on it, but I do want to paint that picture that the Ian Rader we have sitting in front of us in recovery today looks much different than the homeless Ian Rader of downtown LA. So thank you for giving our listeners hope and giving them an example of the depths of of where your addiction took you. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Dr. Sellers, you want to lead him into the next, talking about his recovery? And
So you're on Skid Row in Beverly Hills. Oh wait, it wasn't Beverly Hills.
Beverly
Never
Hills, that works.
Yeah, you're on Skid Row. Where did it start to change to where I got to do something different? Tell us how that happened?
Yeah, you know, I was I'd been kicked out of treatment again for like the 6th time, and I went to a hotel, and I don't want to get into details just because, you know, but it got bad, and I finally just gave up, and I didn't know how to die, and I certainly didn't know how to live. Which is like the common theme, where it was like, have you ever seen the movie Saving Private Ryan?
oh, absolutely.
It's a great movie, right? Great movie. There's that scene where they storm the beach and there's live fire and bombs going off and everything like that. And there's a dude storming the beach and a bomb goes off and he loses his arm. And he's so shell-shocked by what's going on around him that he's not even fazed. He literally just picks up his arm nonchalantly and just goes running down the beach like nothing ever happened.
Carrying on.
And that was me. Just shell-shocked by life, had my arm in my hand, and I called my family after, and they heard something in me that they've never heard before. Before, they would always hear crying, manipulation, like, please give me money, or I want food, or send me a trip. I'm willing to do whatever you want. And I remember pretty well that I was talking to my sister, and in the most like monotone voice, I was just like, I just need something different. And if you guys could somehow send me out of California, I don't even care if it's Alaska, the middle of nowhere, I do not care at this point. Like, I'm willing to try something different. And I pulled a geographical is what they call it, and everyone has their opinions on, whatever, but it worked for me.
So you came to step number 1.
Step number 1, where I was just willing to admit that my life left in my hands was just completely unmanageable. Whether I was sober or drunk or high, like no matter what, I did not know how to manage my own life at that time.
Yeah.
And I detoxed cold turkey on my dad's floor, which was a nightmare. I don't suggest anybody do it that way, but that's just my experience. And then my family was like, Ian, we're sending you to Utah. And I'm like, where is Utah? But at that point, I did not care. I do whatever you want to do with me. Before, I remember the first time family tried to send me to rehab, I ended up like running away from it, a mock intervention, and I was like hiding out and just, no, this is blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And all the excuses from my book were destroyed. And that's what it took for me. And that's what my experience is. What it takes is for someone to remove the excuses from that person's life and put them in a position to where they're either going to receive help or all the help that they've been receiving to help kill them is removed.
Yeah.
Can I point out just another piece of the insanity, right? You are fighting tooth and nail to protect your homeless life that is so awesome. Like, you're not going to listen to anything anybody else says because my life is so beneath the bridge. It's awesome.
Oh, you have no idea.
That's insanity.
I can add to this really quick. So my dad invited me to dinner one time, which was weird because we hadn't spoken for a little bit, and we weren't on the best terms. And I was like, all right, fine. So I'm walking over to his house, keyword walking, and as I'm walking over there, I'm like, God, please send me to treatment. I'm willing to I just wish someone would give me the chance.
Step number 3.
Oh man, just please let me go to treatment. I'm willing, like I will do anything if someone would just give me the chance to go to treatment. And I get to my dad's house and my mom's there and it's an intervention. And they say, Ian, we've secured a place for you to go to treatment. Are you willing to go? Guess what I told them?
No.
You
had it all figured out.
Yeah, I wanted the help, but the second my pride and ego got in the way, I was never going to admit or agree because I know I needed help, but it's not on my terms. So I don't want help. Right. That is the insanity of this thing. That is my life being driven by, the internal perception of my emotions that are wrong because I'm basing this off information that is being perceived wrong. That is the mental illness, the addiction, the disease side of this to where I cannot make rational decisions.
Yeah, addiction turns you into a narcissist.
Oh, yeah.
You can't tell me, you point out at somebody in active addiction and maybe they aren't truly a narcissist, but they're showing every single trait of it. Mm-hmm. Would you agree with that, Dr. Sellers?
Yeah, people get really selfish and really, and they deny that they have a problem. Like it's everyone else's fault, not mine. Yeah. I don't know if you'd call that quite narcissism. It's for sure very selfish.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing when we talk about, eating disorders or things like that, where it's like, I seem like I have no control over my life. So I want to control every aspect that I think I can. Whether it's my body weight, whether it's the food I intake, whether the substances that go in my body, like I lack the control. So I want this illusion of control as much as I can get it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
I just want to point out real quick, Ian is a stud. He was able to get clean cold turkey on his dad's floor. We do not recommend that.
No.
We do not recommend that.
Oh,
that is
no.
not safe practice.
No.
That's a good point.
Back to our sponsor. If you need help, reach out to Steps Recovery Center, right? Like there are places, great places you can get help at. So we do not recommend cold turkey on the
No,
kitchen floor.
and I've worked with Steps before. They're amazing. And so if you guys do need help or anything like that, they have a bunch of different locations all over Utah actually. And they're very They have amazing staff, and a lot of, actually, I think majority of the staff are really good friends of mine. And I don't mean to sound biased or anything, but I love the program and everything they have set up. So if you know of a loved one who's suffering from any kind of substance use problem, please contact them immediately.
And we have listeners that listen to this out of state. We got a lot of out of state support. So if you're listening to this, contact Ian's group because they can get you transport to a step. Go ahead, give us the name.
Yeah, please contact us, Sobriety Wellness Services. Again, my phone number is 805-319-5498, and we can help you get to a treatment facility, private detox, or in general, even just finding the best approach for recovery for you.
Amen. All right. Thank you, guys. You've been listening to We Do Recover. This has been episode 006 featuring Ian Rader.
Bam.
My brain doesn't want to work today. We'll see you guys next week for episode 007. Dr. Sellers, thank you.
Thanks so much for having me on, guys.
Thanks, Ian, for being here.
Pleasure.
Thank you for joining us today on We Do Recover with Jared Miller.
Help us spread our message of hope. Like, comment, and share.
If you have any topics or ideas for future shows, please share that on our Facebook page.
That Facebook page is We Do Recover with Jared Miller. If you or a loved one needs help, please reach out to us. Again, thank you for listening.
Brought to you by Steps Recovery Center and the St. George Hilton Garden Inn. This has been a production from a podcast studio.